This conference will
Okay.
now be recorded.
Okay, then we'll call this June 8th of 2020 meeting of the Community Development Block Grant Steering Committee to order. I have the time as 12:06 p.m. and roll call
Spence Redwine,
here.
Effie Belvin,
Here.
Todd Cattell.
Here.
Okay. Items for individual consideration. Citizens may speak on items listed on this agenda as items for individual consideration. Citizens' comments for items will be limited to 3 minutes. Receive a report, hold a discussion, and take action on the minutes from the March 30th, 2020 meeting. Are there any amendments or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I move that the minutes be accepted as printed.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Receive a report, hold a discussion, and take action on a resolution regarding the HUD correction action recommendation from the May 2020 monitoring review findings.
Are you able to bring up anything? Good afternoon, everyone.
I have something else to bring up.
Good afternoon.
Does everyone have their packet in front of them, or we can bring up the packet? I don't think we have any slides.
I have mine.
I've
I
got
have
one
mine.
on my screen.
Okay. So I wanted to update you, I think from our last meeting in March, I let you know that we were going to have a monitoring from HUD. So I just wanted to give you an update on that. There's a staff report in your packet that outlines some of the details. So due to COVID-19, HUD decided to do a virtual audit. We reserved a week, and we had an opening meeting on the week of the 27th. Previous to that, I gathered up quite a lot of paperwork for them to prepare for their audit. They outlined some specific material that they wanted to review, and I prepared a letter that outlined all of that information for them. The focus of what they wanted to review was our general overview of our systems on how we oversee our program, the eligibility review of our program, whether it was emergency rehab or our code enforcement activities or public facilities, and then they audited our code enforcement activities. The city funds a very small portion of our code compliance work with Cdbg funds, which you know, previously they were covered under, or they were charged under administration. We changed that a couple of years ago to make corrections to that. So that brought up a flag for them. So they wanted to review our processes. And then we perform those activities in our LMI areas. So as a result of the audit, there was a letter. Did the letter go in the packet or not?
No, we did not.
Okay. So we had a several page letter at the end of the audit. We had a phone call conversation with them closing it out, and then they followed up with a several page letter outlining some of the things that we did very well, and then a couple things they wanted us to correct. So they were very pleased with how our overall management systems, on how we have different roles and responsibilities for everybody, whether it's myself or Bill or Lori doing the financing. Renee also plays a role, how we have our separation of duties and stuff. So they're very pleased with that. They're also very pleased with the information that we provide online about our programs, about the Cdbg program and the emergency rehab program. Felicia and I actually took a look at the website. We realized there's still a lot of out-of-date material, so we're going to start working on that in the coming weeks to get that all updated for everybody. They were also pleased that we had well documented, thanks to Kimberly Boehm, the playground equipment that we purchased for Ray Park. Everything was in order, so we got a really good review on that as well. And the area that they want us to make some corrections on, not corrections, but just basically validate is for the council to approve a resolution that more clearly articulates the deteriorated areas of the community where our code officers work, which are LMI areas. So what I bring before you is just some draft language. We can tweak this or we can move this forward, and then we'll prepare a resolution for council's approval. So we'll now be fully in compliance with what HUD has asked us to do. So the draft language is the city defines the locally deteriorating areas for the purposes of using Cdbg funds for code enforcement activity as the low and moderate income areas by block group within the city of Denison as depicted on the current block group map, where at least 51% of residents are low and moderate income persons. And then we would attach the map that defines that area.
Okay.
Questions about the audit? Jason, we
Kimberly, I
can't.
just want to check, can you hear me okay? Because everything's really choppy.
Jason, what'd you say?
Yes, can you hear me?
Can now.
Yes, I can.
Yes.
I'm just trying to see if you can hear me. Okay, all right. Okay, good. I just wanted to be sure because I had to rejoin. You were real choppy and wasn't able to pick your audio up.
You still sound weird, Jason.
Right.
Sorry to interrupt.
Any further discussion?
Any questions about the audit?
I don't have any questions.
I don't have any questions either.
No, I don't either.
I just need a motion.
I move to approve the proposed language to satisfy the resolution to HUD's CDBG program findings.
I second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to public hearings. Citizens may speak on the items listed on the agenda as public hearings. The request to speak card must be completed, and citizens' comments are limited to 3 minutes. Receive a report, hold a discussion, conduct a public hearing, and take action on a resolution amending the Cdbg grant, the Cdbg 2019 Annual Action Plan.
Thank you, Spence. As you know, due to COVID-19, the city of Denison received $173,668 as a result of the CARES Act. This public hearing and amendment to the annual action plan is to amend our annual action plan to include these funds to be able to use these funds for building and improvements and assistances to building businesses, including special economic development assistance that support the local pandemic response. This did require a public hearing, and staff recommends approval of the amendment to the current annual action plan to incorporate these funds. No determined projects have been specified for use of the funds by staff, and that's certainly we're interested in your input if you have any thoughts.
So when does that have to take place? When do we have to determine how to use that money?
Internally, we've begun discussions already with it. The money is going to be incorporated into this year's annual action plan, so it can be used at any point later on this year. If you have if you have any specific ideas, or if you want to just defer it to our local internal staff and emergency management staff, since we're closer on the ground to some of what the current needs are, we can discuss that too.
I definitely would defer to you guys on that, Kimberly. I don't. There's of course there's a lot that needs to be done, and we're headed in the right direction. But I think that your comments, that city staff's comments, would carry significant weight in my mind.
Spence and the committee, we've been meeting. We were meeting when COVID-19 broke out and things started changing very rapidly, all the directors and executive staff met virtually every day for a half hour to coordinate and clearly identify the most urgent needs and what we needed to do with emergency management and such. And then it went down to 3 days a week, and now it's 2 days a week that we coordinate all activities, whether it's shutting down or opening or, where to find hand sanitizer or whatever. So we talked with some of our community leaders on some of the needs whether it's at TMC or some other place. So what might be our recommendation is to continue that conversation with our staff and then, kind of share with you what direction we might be going with and updating you at the next meeting.
Okay.
If that's a reasonable approach.
Yeah, that's a reason, and my reasonable, yes.
Okay.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
This is Essie. Where can we, and who do we give any comments or suggestions that we have? Who do we contact to do that?
On the use of the funds for COVID-19,
Yes.
you can just email them to Felicia.
Okay.
That's fine. And then she can share them with me and I can get them to the team.
Okay. Thank you.
So what's in your packet was some of the information that Jason Smith, our consultant for our 5-year comp plan, he's an expert in Cdbg, and he had shared this information with us on some of the possible uses of the funds. So that's why I included that, just for your information. Except for on page 2 of that document is the quick guide to Cdbg eligible activities. On page 2,
Right.
under planning, capacity building, and technical assistance, that only applies to the states. So none of those funds or uses are available to us. But the first three, I believe the first 3 blocks, and anything we pursue, I would definitely make sure that our coordinator down in Fort Worth, had signed off on it being an approved use.
Right.
I think due to how COVID-19 had came into our community different than some of the other cities, we didn't go to use this money right away since we still had capable resources and all. So that's why we didn't bring this to you, sooner, but now's the time to get it adopted.
So for now, you just need a motion to approve that amendment. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, I'll move
I
to
move to
approve the
approve the
amendment.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Todd.
All right, I move to approve the amendment adopting the Community Development Block Grant 2019 Annual Action Plan to include funds for the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act for building improvements and assistance to businesses, including special economic development assistance.
I second.
Real quick,
All in
guys.
favor?
Did we open?
Oh, go ahead.
Did we open and close a public hearing for that item before a motion was made?
I apologize.
Don't think we did.
That's my mistake.
That's
I
okay.
did
Yeah,
not.
we'll just rewind a little bit and we'll go through and make sure and open and close that public hearing, and then we'll go through with the motion again, please.
Sorry about that. Let me scroll up here. Well, I did say conduct a public hearing, but I didn't open it. I didn't use the word open. So let's open the public hearing to discuss item A of the Cdbg 2019 Annual Action Plan. And then now we can do our motion. Is that correct?
We'll go ahead and close the public hearing and then
Okay,
we'll do
sorry.
the motion.
Not on my
No
game
worries.
today. Well, is it close the public hearing for the 2019 Annual Action Plan? Now, do I hear a motion?
I move to approve the amendment adopting the Community Development Block Grant 2019 Annual Action Plan to include the funds for the Coronavirus Aid, Relief and Economic Security Act for building improvements and assistance to businesses, including special economic development assistance.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We just wanted to hear you read that again, Todd.
I know. I've almost have it memorized now. So.
You're right. Okay. And I won't make the same mistake twice on the next one. Receive a report, hold a discussion, conduct a public hearing, and receive comments and input on the preparation of the Cdbg Program 5-year 2020-2024 Consolidated Plan. I will open the public hearing at this time.
Well, let's do, Spence, let's do the report first.
Okay, 10-4, go ahead.
Okay, so Manjeet's now on the call. I'm going to introduce Manjeet Renew, our interim planning director. He's been assisting us as project leader with our newly hired consultant, Wade Trim. Jason Smith is on the phone as well. So Manjeet, I'm going to turn this over to you.
All right, thank you, Kimberly, and thank you, committee members, for our discussion today. So as Kimberly mentioned, this is the required update to the 5-year consolidated plan, which we need to do to accept the federal funds for the Cdbg program. And so you see in front of you with the staff report, the key items here, that it's the update. We have our consultant, Wade Trim, represented by Jason Smith, who's also on the call today. And we're going to just give you a little bit of background as to what we're doing, and the work program overview, and some next steps with that. And then primarily what we'd like to do is 2 things. One is introduce what the work program, and the other is to get your feedback, because public input and stakeholder input are a key part of the process for updating the consolidated plan. In the report, you see there's discussion about the background of the committee's role, and you're well aware of that. So fundamentally, we're looking for your input on this program. And as I mentioned, the consolidated plan is a requirement, so it reflects the community's priorities in accepting and expending funding for the Cdbg program. And it's therefore a well-planned effort and efficient use of federal funds in consistency with state law, focused on low and moderate income areas. We have a work program that's been developed with the consultant, and that work program really began in March with requisition of that consultant, and Wade Trim was the best proposed, and they're doing an outstanding job for us already. Once we selected Wade Trim, we began the public outreach process. So a survey has been sent out to key providers, service providers, and those similar interest groups to get some information. We already, the city already prepared a survey of city services, and so that includes a wealth of information too that will be useful for this effort. So in addition to kicking off public outreach, we've also began the needs assessment and market analysis. And so we expect that to conclude in June. And then beginning in June through July, we would prepare the draft consolidated plan. And then in July through August, there would be a public comment review period of the draft plan, and then ultimately city council action and submission to the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development. The priorities for the existing community development block grant program in Denison have been for some time now emergency rehabilitation and partial funding of a code enforcement officer, partial funding for administration of the program, of course, and payoff of a loan that was used to rehabilitate streets in some areas of the low to moderate income neighborhoods of the city. Since a priority of the program is enforcing minimum property standards, some of the program dollars are spent to assist property owners with coming into compliance. And I think we all would agree that the program to work on cleaning up substandard properties and assisting property owners with that has paid a lot of dividends in Denison and resulted in a lot of investment, which is also consistent with the city's 2018 comprehensive plan. So with that, Kimberly, do you want me to turn it over to Jason, or do you want to say a couple words here?
We can turn it over to Jason. That's fine.
Okay. All right, so I'll introduce Jason Smith. See if your camera pops up here, showing your Michigan face there in a moment. Are you there, Jason?
I think he was having some technical.
Oh yeah, he's offline. All right, let me see if I can text him and see if I can get him back on. Well, in the meantime, committee members, while we're waiting for Jason, are there some thoughts that you would like to share with us, or some initial questions?
I don't really have any initial questions. We've done so much good with this program over the years. When I first joined, it was boards and nails, meaning we were fixing roofs, and then we've done a lot with parks and roads. So I'm trying to figure out exactly what I would personally recommend us do. But we're doing so much good that I would like to hear what Effie and Todd have to say.
This is Effie. I believe that we've done a lot of good, and I would just like to see more done in the low and moderate income neighborhoods as far as the roads, because we've done some, but of course there's still a lot that needs to be done. And later on I'll have some questions about some of the housing that's going up in those areas. I have to do a little checking into that, but I can see a lot of good that has taken place.
Yeah, I guess I would say I'm, a proponent of the individuals and families that can be assisted by this program. And I know that's a more limited scope, but I guess that's one thing that I would like to certainly continue and even expand to help the individual residences rehabilitate. And I've been really pleased with that. I know it seems like we've been limited to some degree with the amount of money that we can invest into a particular home. And I know it's not feasible at some point to invest money in a home that is really more fit for demolition. But I think that's the passion that I bring to this, is just helping individuals and their needs.
Right.
I asked Felicia to bring today the numbers that number of families and clients that we've helped over the last few years with emergency rescue. Year's definitely been a different year. So Felicia, can you share a little bit more on how this year's going?
Yes, this year we've had so far about 20 applicants, and we've had 16 of them trying not to be eligible for assistance. We had one that required assistance because of minimum property standards citation, and because we had more money and we increased the roof line, that has helped us out a lot, because the roofers have been coming in within the budget, and we actually had one that had a little bit over. So with the overage, we still had enough funds in there to cover it. And we also had one other applicant that had really serious problem with the flooring, and it turned out to be something that the insurance company could help her with. So contract, we called out on that one, so that helped us. It was going to be a little bit too expensive for our program requirements also. Also, some of the work that we had in process when COVID-19 hit, we had to slow down on it because some of the individuals didn't want anyone in their homes at the time. So we still have a couple of those to go back in and work on.
Understood.
Let's see what else. We had about 4 repeats. So for those 4, this will be their last time that they can apply for it. And out of those 4, about 2 of those were on the waiting list to get work completed from last year when we ran out of funds for it. Let's see. It's really been helping that we had more money this year. So in the last week, I've received about 4 this year, and I'm still sending them out on a regular basis daily with getting questions on it. And they've mostly been for roofs and plumbing. We have an issue with Atmos gas coming in and having people turn the gas off because they're saying there's some issues with the gas. So there's been a plumbing issue that we've been getting plumbers out to go look at that. So but those jobs are pretty small. Like the ones that come in have been pretty small. And I have about 4 roofs in the works now going on. So any questions?
I don't have any questions.
This is Effie. I have a question. Felicia, how many, you said there were 20 applicants this year, and how many were approved?
16 have been already pretty much qualified for it. Let's see, 1 was ineligible because of the property pretty much needed demolition. I haven't addressed it. Okay. Sorry. The other person did not own the property, 100% ownership in the property.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see. Yeah, so I have 2 that were ineligible so far.
Okay, thank you.
We're still accepting more, Effie. It's just to date what we've been working on.
Right.
Yeah. The other one refused assistance because he couldn't get the new roof, and our inspector determined that he didn't need a new roof. He just needs other work done. So he refused any services we had to offer. And then I think one just had gone over the limit, and the house needed too much work done to it for us to help out with it. And of those, we had very low income. It was like 3 people, very low. 7 individuals, families were extremely low income, and then 9 were just low income individuals.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, and then 1 person was under age 50. Everyone else was 50 and above, older.
Okay.
Robert Lay, our code compliance manager, is also with us today, and he can share a little bit about where the code officers work and the type of activities that they've been doing. Just to give you, he hasn't normally joined us, so he's here today too.
Okay. Effie, Felicia, I appreciate that report. Is that not part of the information that is presented to us each meeting, or do we have access to that? Because that's real encouraging to me to hear that. But
it has not been in the past. I have in my notes that I could, moving forward, present you all with the graph. Or actually,
okay.
to you.
Yeah, that would be really. I'd really like to see that. So like I said, I'm encouraged by that report. So that's good.
We have spreadsheets of all of our applications and the type of work that's done, so we can share some additional information with you. Absolutely.
There's two. Jason is back, but he's on the phone. So if it's okay, I can turn it over to Jason just to provide some comments and his expertise, as this is a primary area of practice of him and his firm. So Jason, do you want to jump in now? If you're there, Jason, maybe you're on mute.
We don't see him.
Yeah, he's only on the phone.
He's just on the phone.
Oh, okay.
Jason, you there? All right, we'll wait for Jason to jump in when he is able to. Robert, I assume that's you in the corner. It's a little hard for me to see. Is there anything you'd like to add for the committee?
So we were talking about just code enforcement activities throughout the city, and the way we have our city divided up amongst our 3 code officers, all of them have areas of LMI within the city that they work. Of course, one of the biggest pushes right now from the top down is minimum maintenance standards on houses, and so we strategically work those minimum property standards cases throughout the city, and Of course, many of them fall in those LMI areas. And as we work those, of course, we hope to open up dialogue with those folks to let them know that these resources are available. Because I know that it can get overwhelming for them. We actually, you know, Felicia mentioned we have one applicant this year that has applied because of a minimal property standards case that was initiated on them. So, I mean, that's not very good ratios, because we've probably opened up 100 minimal property standards cases across the city. So we almost have to like beg them to apply. So I don't know if it's that they need to know more about the program or what, but we always try to share that information that the money's available, knowing, you know, with that being a priority, we want to definitely help as many folks as possible throughout the city.
So, Robert, when you issue a warning or a citation, what, in your mind, what is it typically for? Like, what does a typical home need to do to improve itself?
I would bet at least 50% of those. It's mainly like exterior siding type work. You know, some of it's trim, whether that's fascia soffit, window trim, that kind of thing. Then there's roofs play a part in that. But, you know, I would say the biggest majority of them just need exterior work on like their siding to be repaired from rotten places where they're not weather tight. And then, of course, the painting of it. That's probably the biggest majority.
Okay.
I mean, and it really is. Those are the things that the public sees from the outside looking in. You know, sometimes there's bigger issues if, you know, you can get inside of them. But for minimum property standards, the way our ordinance is written, it is strictly for the exterior structure, not we have a separate ordinance for the interior structure.
Right. Okay.
Did Jason join us yet?
I'm communicating with him right now. He says he can hear us just fine, but we're obviously not able to hear him.
Angie, give him my cell number. Just give him my cell number. I'll put my phone by the speaker. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let me do that.
Maybe that's him. Is that you, Jason?
This is me.
Okay.
Yay. Yeah, there we go.
I did absolutely nothing different than what I've been doing, and all of a sudden, I have no idea.
I've been there.
Anyway,
go ahead, Jason.
Are you guys? Is everyone done?
Go ahead.
All right, so is it my turn now?
Yes.
It's your turn, yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. I really do apologize. I tried computer, I tried phone, I tried every other which way. All right, so 5-year consolidated plan. I was listening in the entire time, so I did hear Felicia's report and Manjeet's your details. You know, it sounds like we have a good idea of how things have progressed over the last 5 years, what type of programs have been funded, and sounds like things have been successful in that regard. But we are embarking in the new 5-year consolidated plan, where we're working to identify what our 5-year goals will be moving forward, and that will cover program year 2020 through program year 2024. So our job here through this 5-year plan and developing this 5-year plan will be to identify what the goals and priorities will be for this Cdbg funding over the course of these next 5 years. So I usually, with a 5-year consolidated plan, I show 4 primary functions for these plans typically. It is a planning document for the city of Denison. I am a planner by trade, so these plans are actually fun to do for me, because when a lot of times when you're working with planning and zoning, you're developing plans that might not have resources or funding to back them up. And in this case, this is a planning document where we're developing goals and priorities that actually have funding to support the goals and priorities we're identifying. So that's I think that's an exciting part of this 5-year consolidated planning process. having resources to back up the ideas that we have. In addition, it does serve as a grant application to HUD. So this is a requirement. I know Manjeet mentioned in order to receive funding on an annual basis, this is a requirement. So it is treated as a grant application to HUD, and funding is allocated annually based on a formula allocation. Within the plan itself, we have a strategic plan, which this is really the meat of the document, where you get into identifying what the goals and priorities are for the next 5 years. So when you're sifting through 150 to 200 pages of this consolidated plan, I would encourage you to flip back to the strategic plan section. That would be the where it really starts to identify how resources will be allocated through the course of the 5 years. So that would be an interesting read, I believe, when we have this 5-year plan available for viewing. And in addition, within the 5-year plan, we actually have an annual action plan. So concurrently with the 5-year plan, we're developing the 2020 annual action plan. So we're working to allocate our 2020 Cdbg grant to specific projects that will hopefully meet some of the goals and objectives that we've identified within the 5-year plan. Other components of the 5-year consolidated plan include a citizen participation plan, which I know that the city has on file. It helps to identify what the process will be, not only every 5 years when we develop our 5-year consolidated plan, but also annually when we do our annual action plans, when we prepare our performance report. I heard there was a question about information on accomplishments that Felicia was reporting on. I think a lot of that information will be contained within the CAPER, which is the performance report that's developed annually by the city. So that's some good reading at the end of each program year to identify what the money's been spent on, how many households have been assisted, how many homes have been rehabbed, things of that nature. So I think that would be something to keep an eye on as the program years end each year. Also, within the plan, we have what's called a needs assessment and a market analysis, which we develop. It's very data heavy. We use census data. We use resources that are provided by HUD and through local information, such as I know there's a survey that was conducted locally in the city that we're going to use to help inform some of this needs assessment section. We also do research with the local homeless coalition, who has information on the homeless population, and any other agencies that we feel are necessary to consult to gain information from, housing authorities, things of that nature. So a lot of this document will be comprised of a lot of data and data analysis pulled from a lot of different sources. So we use all of that information, all that data collected, in addition to all the input that we receive through meetings such as this and surveys and so on, to help develop our priorities for the 5 years.
Great.
Okay, and so I'm almost done, sorry. As mentioned, this program, this 5-year consolidated plan, covers your Cdbg grants. I know there was mention of the Cdbg CV funding. That's being incorporated in your 2019 annual action plan as not part of this process, this 2020 consolidated plan moving forward. So that's going to be incorporated into a previously adopted annual action plan. So we'll be looking at funding sources that through Cdbg that are available over the course of the next 5 years. The city right now receives roughly somewhere close to $300,000, just shy of $300,000 annually in Cdbg funding. So when we start to look at developing goals and outcomes in that for over the 5 years, we're really looking at about $1.5 million or so. This is an estimation, $1.5 million over the course of 5 years that will allocate towards things like paying our Section 108 loan off, which is already committed annually from that grant amount. We'll be looking at funding staff time to administer the grants. And I know that there's a lot of other ongoing programs like code enforcement and emergency repair that I know the city has been successful in implementing in the past, and I would assume would likely continue that trend moving forward. So anyway, that's kind of a quick overview of the 5-year consolidated plan. Really the main objectives here, and we're going to drill down and get more specific within the plan. But the ultimate goal is to assist low and moderate income households, low and moderate income areas within the city with housing programs, community development programs. So that's really what we're aiming to do through this plan, looking at past performance and then also existing data to help inform our goals for the next 5 years. So early July, I believe, is when we have this draft scheduled for public review. So keep an eye out for that. We'll have a draft available as we get closer to the end of June and early July. And any comments that you do have, we welcome. Any questions you have, please feel free to ask. We're here to help. So with that, I'll turn back over to staff. Thank you, and I apologize again for my technical issues.
Oh, no worries, no worries.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
So we printed off the goal summary from our current 5-year consolidated plan that we have now. I think it's, many of you have been here longer than us. It's changed a little bit over the years, but we've had minor emergency rehabilitation, that program on our 5-year plan. The infrastructure projects, which was edited back in 2016, our Section 108 loan that we're paying off for the next about 5 more years. We did add a commercial demolition last year, which we had edited the plan for that. And we've had code enforcement and then public facilities rehabilitation. And that, of course, was for last year with the park facilities. So that's kind of an overview of what you've had for the last 5 years as items in the 5-year plan. Any questions about that?
No questions here.
Okay, so
No question.
Manjeet, do you want to give out any more information, or should we ask Spence to open up the public hearing? And I don't think we have any other callers or any other official public hearing, but we should probably do the formal open and close.
Agreed. I think it'd be good for the record to show the public hearing was held and open and closed.
I would like to open a public hearing for item 4B for the input on the preparation of the Cdbg program 5-year consolidated plan. I will close the public hearing for item 4B at this time. Moving to staff updates. Receive a report, hold a discussion regarding division updates.
Before I go to staff updates, Spence, can I, between Manjeet and myself, just give an overview of what to expect for the timeline to get this to HUD for approval?
Of course.
As Jason had outlined, the plan is to have a draft plan of the 5-year plan and the annual action plan to you in July. We'll hold another public hearing, and then there'll be a public comment period. If there's no changes from this committee, then it would be recommended to be forward to the city council for a public comment period and for adoption. It has to be on the council agenda no later than their August meeting, their first August meeting. I think it's the 3rd. I think it's that first Monday. In order to make it for us to be able to file it to HUD in August. So just so you know our timing. We will use information from the survey that was sent out, from the existing data that Jason referenced as well, and then from the existing community surveys that the city has sent out over the last year or two. So it won't be just the input that the committee just received today. We do have a limited amount of funds due to the Section 108 requiring another several years to be paid off. So we'll wait to hear what Jason pulls together for data. But I don't know if there'll be any significant changes, I would say, from the current plan, unless you have any further input for us before we move on.
I'm good.
Sounds like a plan to me.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm fine with it.
Staff updates, we are still short two 2 committee members, Felicia, is that right? We have reached out to one potential, but they haven't got their application into us, so that's why it's not on your agenda today. So we are still looking for a couple more folks to join us. So if you know of anyone that would be interested in this topic and help in their community, please send their name or their contact info to us and we can get the application out to them.
I will. I'll do that. I promise you I'd get you somebody. It's just been an odd time. I hadn't been able to get anybody to commit, but I will continue the effort.
Sure. And, you know, as you know, the time commitment, it's not substantial and they can also call us, ask whatever questions they have before they make a decision. So they would like.
Speaking of the time commitment, I just want to be sure to tell everybody that I appreciate the information today and the hard work that went into this meeting. And you know, Kimberly, you and your staff and Robert running around this town, I see what code enforcement has done in the last 2 or 3 years for sure, or more. And I just want to say that I appreciate all the efforts.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, code compliance still is a number one. Is one of the number one priorities for the city council. So we do feel that the funds that are allocated to code compliance have been very well spent and are an important part of the overall package that we provide.
Mm-hmm.
Any other things? Angie, did you have anything?
No additional. Appreciate the committee's feedback. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anything further from anybody?
The next meeting, Felicia will get in touch with you. It'll be, well, I'm just looking, is Jason still on the line?
I am, yes.
Jason, do you have an estimated week or couple weeks of which for us to schedule the next meeting, just so we can start coordinating calendars with the groups? It's this summertime.
Yeah, so we've held a public hearing with the committee. So this has been before the 30-day comment period. It might be a good idea to hold one during the 30-day comment period.
Okay.
Which we have beginning on July 4th, running through August 3rd.
Okay.
City Council is August 3rd. So maybe second, third week of July makes sense.
Okay.
That's good with me.
And would they would they propose to adopt the plan and recommend it? Well, propose to move it to the city council for recommendation to adopt at that meeting?
Yeah, they would, at the next meeting, we would have the draft would be out for public comment. And at that point, the committee could offer a recommendation to city council. Perfect.
All right, great. Felicia will get with you then with the committee to get a time nailed down for that. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I second it.
I second.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for your great communication and appreciate you guys.
Yep, have a good rest of the day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Minji.